Hello, everybody, and welcome yet again to another episode of Living on Music. I'm Steve Hauk, and very, very excited to have you along for the ride. As always, our new members of the Living on Music Nation, as well as people popping in to catch my incredible guest tonight. And I will show you behind me, though, first is a venue that anybody who grew up in Connecticut or in the East Coast might have gone to. Might still go to. It is still going. It is called Toad's Place, and it is at New Haven, right in the middle of Yale University. I grew up in Connecticut. My parents went to Yale, but I didn't go to Toad's because they went to Yale. I went to Toad's because they had great music playing a lot in this club, and saw a bunch of shows over my teen years. But two of them were really memorable. One was the 10th anniversary show of NRBQ. And that was something else. It was in the early to mid 70s, and they'd been going since, 10 years prior to that. And they wore tuxedos, and all the guys in the band, were the original guys. And it was such a fabulous show. Loved every minute of it. And then saw a number of years later, the Romantics. Talking in Your Sleep was their big song at the moment. And they had a wonderful career from Detroit, I believe, Michigan, had a wonderful run. And I came out of the show feeling no pain, so to speak, and jumped up on a branch to shake it because it had been raining and to get some kind of cool off because we were hot from being in the show. And the branch broke and I fell on my back and was fine that evening because I was feeling no pain, but woke up in the morning and couldn't really move. Then was kind of out of the mix for a day or two. But anyway, the Toad's Place, amazing place. And I love putting venues that I adore behind me, as well as venues that my guests adore. But tonight's guest, Doogie White, is somebody that is an incredible guy. I'm going to intro him in a minute, and you can get a real rundown on him. But playing with Ritchie Blackmore, Yngwie Malmsteen, Michael Schenker, writing music for the last 40 plus years, creating bands, literally in close to 20 bands over the years, and still going strong. In fact, just joined a band called Alcatraz, which was big in the 80s, and then jumped back into the world in around 2019, 2020, and got Doogie to be their singer, and are churning forward. So things are going well for him. But introduce him in a second. Real quick, Living on Music page on Facebook. Join us. We have over 600 members. Very exciting. It's really wonderful. A lot of posts, a lot of cool music-oriented things going on. So please join Living on Music, the group. Also, the Living on Music website has the articles that I've written over the last 15 or so years with the greatest musicians in the world, and you'll love to see it. You could even just put in the search up there, as you see on the homepage. Just write in Richard Thompson, Steve Earle, John Mayall, David Crosby. I could go on, and you could find some wonderful stories that these guys told me if you're into reading about some of these great artists. Also, I'd love to ask everybody who's a member of Living on Music group and who's not to subscribe to the Living on Music with Steve Hauk YouTube channel. We've decided to kind of move our airing of the shows to YouTube because of Facebook's unpredictability and technical gremlins and things like that, and kind of some things that they keep making it a little bit harder to do things. So we were promoting it heavily on Facebook, still a member of ZTV, of course, and but now air it on YouTube. So we'd love to have people subscribe to the Living on Music YouTube channel. It's also got a lot of my own local music, which is kind of fun to check out, but also some great clips of some other things. So join today if you can, and go join and subscribe to the Living on Music with Steve Hauk YouTube channel. I've interviewed a slew of musicians over the last 16 months on Living on Music that have had careers that have spanned 30, 40, 50, even 60 years. If you ask Tom Rush, the great folk legend, who's in his 80s and has had a career that long. And it has been incredible to go down the journeys with some of these incredible musicians and just hear their stories about what they did and how they've kept active. And my guest tonight is no exception. Doogie White is only 363 days older than me. He was born on March 7th, 1960. I was born on March 5th, 1961. And he's one of those epic musicians with a career that boggles the mind. Extremely talented vocalist, respected guy in the UK and beyond, has played all over the world with his amazing myriad of bands. He did studio and live work with guitar and rock legends like Ritchie Blackmore and Rainbow, and played with him for several years in the mid-90s. Played with Yngwie Malmsteen and Rising Force and a number of other projects. Played with Michael Schenker in a couple of bands over the last 10 years, and that is actually continuing, and hoping to have something with Michael going in the next few months again. But he is also just highly regarded by fans and bands alike. There's a whole slew of things he's done that we might not even catch into tonight, because it is just an incredible, incredible career. And he's such a sweet guy. And I think you're going to have a blast with a guy who not only has been going for a long time, but is continuing to go. And we're going to show you why, of some music that he's done recently, and also a few wonderful clips with Ritchie Blackmore and Michael Schenker. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Living on Music, Doogie White. Doogie White, welcome to Living on Music, man. I am honored to have you here. How are you?
It's lovely to be here, and such a beautiful day, you know.
Yes.
And so I'm very happy to be able to chat with you now.
Well, thank you, Doogie, and I am too. And I've done research for a number of weeks on your life and your career, and you're something to be reckoned with. So I can't wait to talk about life as Doogie White and how things have gone through the musical world. What a ride. It has been spectacular. Tell me a little bit though, as a man, you're living in Edinburgh now.
Yes.
Is that where you, yeah. You live in Edinburgh. It's been a year and 6 months or so of stuff that none of us have really in our lives gone through like this. How have you been doing as a musician? How have you been doing, especially with Alcatraz kind of kicking in? And we'll talk about them in a second, but how are you, your family, yourself, and your soul doing?
Do you do bird song if someone says something rude?
No.
You don't?
You can say whatever you want.
Okay, well, it's been shite.
Shite. Yeah, that's pretty honest. I've heard worse. So yeah,
it's been very different. And I think that all musicians, especially, there are levels here. You know, you've got your Kiss, Iron Maiden, AC/DC, Metallica, blah, blah, blah. And they'll all survive, you know. But you have other bands who we make our money by touring now, because some guys in the Valley, Silicon Valley, with their hair in the man bun,
right, and
their corduroy trousers and their slip-on shoes,
right,
came up with a program that could steal the money from the creators here, and that's what's happening now. Between you and me, and don't tell anybody else this, especially not anybody that's listening or watching this, the record companies and publishers must be involved.
Right.
Because if they were not, it wouldn't be allowed to happen.
Right.
So once again, the musicians, the creators of the work, are being up the ass. Yep.
Absolutely. You are somebody that had kind of a resurgence with this band that has been around for a long time, and you joined them in 2020, Alcatraz. That to me was something special amidst. When did that happen? How did it happen? I know you had connections galore with people in the band and things like that. How did Alcatraz come into your world? And again, also it's surging ahead, and hopefully out of this thing, it can really surge.
Well, it's nice that you say that it's surging ahead. Since 1990, man, I've been constantly in work you know, I worked for 3.5 years with Ritchie Blackmore.
Yeah.
I worked for 7 years and a bit with Yngwie Malmsteen.
Yeah.
I worked for 4 years with Tank. I worked for 9 years and a bit with Michael Schenker.
Yep.
So it's not like a resurgence, really. It's just that people now, after all those years, add it up, you know, it's probably 2-3 decades. It's just now that people might be interested in hearing what I'm doing, mostly for gossip reasons, because
Right.
they know Graham and I are friends. So.
I meant more of a resurgence for Alcatraz, since they had they started in '83, right? And then they stopped a few years past, and then boom, they got going, and they decided Doogie White is going to be our guy. So you were churning along with other bands, you always have been. It's neat that they would come in and grab you and run. I love that.
Well, it was more. It's not something that I was expecting to happen, to be honest.
Wow.
Graham came up here with Alcatraz, and it's difficult to remember, you know, but it might have been 2019 or 2018.
Okay.
And he said, I just don't like this music. I hate this music. I didn't like it when I did it with Malmsteen. I didn't like it when I did it with Vise, and I'm certainly not enjoying it.
Right.
Right. And I said, well, you know, you're in your 70s now, man. Do something that pleases you.
Yeah.
I mean, what he really wanted to do was to go and play in a band with Bethany, his girlfriend. That's what he wanted to do.
Wow.
That's what he wanted to do.
Right.
Right. That's what he wanted to do. So he's doing that now.
Okay.
And which he'd been doing for 5 or 6 years before.
Right.
And so I had no idea. And then the Alcatraz guys phoned me up and said, thanks very much, man. Graham's now left the band, so you're going to have to come in here and be the singer and do the tour. And I thought, oh God, because I don't know anything about Alcatraz really. You know,
Right.
I mean, I know Graham and I've worked with Yngwie, but I didn't really know anything about them. And so we had tour dates lined up, but of course, because of COVID, and it all got swept aside. And I said, well, why don't we just record a new album? And that's what we did. And that's where we are today.
Right. And they're the melodic progressive rock that you've been part of throughout the years. What was different about their sound as you kind of got together with them in the last year or so? Was there something that was? No,
it was just, it's never that for me. It doesn't matter to me at all, because if someone wants me to write songs for them or with them,
right,
then I just rise to the challenge and do what I do. So had it not been Alcatraz, had it been someone else, I would have done exactly the same thing. So I'm very happy that we've recorded a brilliant new record. I mean, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me yesterday, or it might have been today or the other day, I don't really remember, I'm doing so many. And he said to me, he said, so how does this album differ from the last Alcatraz album? And I was like, I've got no bird song idea, because I don't listen to that.
Right.
I love to play it. I love to play this music, but I don't listen to it. So if you ask me what I think about the new Maiden song or the new Alcatraz song or the new Deep Purple song, I won't be able to tell you.
Right.
Because that's a busman's holiday for me. You know, being 60 years old now, you know, if I want to hear AC/DC, I go back to 1976.
Yeah.
If I want to listen to Deep Purple, I go back to 1976. If I want to, that's what I do. So I'm not influenced in any way by whatever else goes on. But what I try to do is to write the best songs that I can do. And that's what I did with Alcatraz. I just thought, do you know what? This music is great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna nail it. I'm gonna nail it. And people will either buy into it or they won't. And of course, there'll be one or two Graham Bonnet fans, and one of which is me,
Right.
who'll go, oh, no Graham Bonnet, no Alcatraz. And do you know what? They'll be missing out on an album's worth of classic rock metal songs.
Yeah.
And they can go off and watch Graham play with the Graham Bonnet Band, or they can listen to what we've done with Alcatraz.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it is. Because, and I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
No, it's okay.
But I've been out in the sun all day. Right?
It's okay.
I've been, you know, people didn't like Bruce. People didn't like Ronnie. People didn't like Sammy. People didn't like this, you know. But what they did was they went in there and they shook things up. And
Right.
that's what I've done. I've gone in and I've shaken things up here. The last Alcatraz album, Born Innocent, was a hodgepodge of different things.
Right.
The only consistency was Graham's voice.
Right.
You know, but the rest of it was just hodgepodge.
Right.
And this is my hodgepodge.
Yeah. That's a difference. That is
There you
it.
go.
And I have listened to some of these new songs, Doogie, and
Yeah.
they are wonderful. They rock.
Aren't they?
They rock the socks. And talk a
Yeah,
little bit.
man.
We got a couple of clips I want to show some of my Living on Music Nation.
Okay.
From the new record, and one of them is "Turn of the Wheel." Talk about how that song came to be.
That was the first song that the guys sent through to me. They said, well, we need to do an album. And I said, right, okay, we need to do an album. So they sent that through. That and House of Lies were the two songs they sent through. And that was the first tune we wrote. And I just thought, do you know what? That's powerful. And he's such a great writer, Joe. And I love the way that he puts these wee songs in his guitar solos. He just puts them in there.
Right.
You know, and it's a great band roundabout. You know, these guys have been doing this for years.
Yeah.
So they know where they want to go. Joe's relatively new in Alcatraz. So we had an idea of where we wanted to take it. And Jimmy and Gary and Mark all just went, do you know what? I think it's worth going that way.
Wow. I think you should be really happy with kind of what you brought to them. I mean, isn't it kind of a great feeling to be able to come into a band and boom?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And it was all, whatever they were always going to do was always going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever they chose. And that was the power that they took, rather than being powerless. They could have chosen anybody else to do this. And a lot of people would have stepped up to the wheel.
I bet.
And, but they asked me, and I just said yes. When I heard what they were doing, I thought, oh man, I got to be part of this.
Yeah.
And we wrote very well together, I think, because our hearts and our vision was moving in the same direction.
Really? Yeah. They were completely complimentary. I love the quotes in the release after you were brought on saying, we're extremely happy that our good friend Doogie White will be joining us. We are fans of his voice and his impressive catalog of music. So you were going in with a pretty great reputation to these guys, and you followed through.
We're supposed to go out with Alcatraz in November with Girls' School over here in the UK. And it's a 90-minute set, but it probably will be 70 minutes. But I'm working towards 90 minutes. So I'm singing all these songs every day and rehearsing them every day, because there's nothing worse than getting on stage and trying to sing a Graham Bonnet song and you just go,
oh God.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Right.
Because, he's so unique. He's so unique. And I love him, and I love his voice. I can't sing anything like him. So I have to find a way to make these old songs my own, in the same way that Ronnie did with the Black Sabbath songs, in the same way that Bruce did with the Diano songs, in the same way that Sammy did with you know, the Van Halen songs.
Yes.
So I have to find a way to do that. And the only way to do that is to do them a lot of times.
Right.
And then you find, it's called muscle memory, right?
Yeah.
And you find it and it just knows where to go, you know?
Yes, totally agree. And again, you're a 40 to 50 year singer, probably more than 40 years. You probably really kicked in, and we'll talk a little bit about when you first really started singing with bands. I'm your age. We just talked about that, literally a year younger, minus a couple of days. And I've been singing in bands for about 15 years in cover bands in Washington. And to sing every day, I can't imagine. I had a nodule on my throat. It does get worn down, but the muscle memory is what keeps me going as a midlife cover band guy. But I hear you. And it's going to be exciting to follow Alcatraz when this thing gets you guys out and going. And I can't wait to hear how November goes. I want to dive a little bit back into your life. We'll hit some of the highlights because you got so many people you've worked with, Doogie, over the years. I mean, just an astounding list. We probably won't hit them all, but we'll hit a couple of the biggies. And also born in Motherwell, Scotland. And your first 10 years of life, was there music abound, or did you find it later?
No, it's interesting. My mother, we didn't have a record player. We didn't have a television. You know, I spent time climbing trees, riding bicycles, you know, catching wasps and bees. And the first single I ever bought was Daydream Believer by the Monkees.
Wow.
Right. And it had Going Down on the B-side. And I think we bought them because someone had given us a record player, and it was one of those ones where you stacked things up, right? So you took your singles or your albums and you stacked them up, and you just played them, and it just played, and then the next one dropped down.
Sure.
And my mum bought Engelbert Humperdinck. 10 a.m. Please Release Me.
Oh God.
Right?
Yeah.
And the B-side was 10 guitars.
Oh my God.
I have a band of men and all they do is play for me.
Oh,
nice. And so when I heard that, I thought, my God, that guy's just, it was the melody, it was the tone, it was the joy that he was singing. And so that's kind of where I kind of started, really. I just found Tom Jones, Engelbert Humperdinck, Frank Ifield, and Davy Jones from the Monkees. And then, of course, for harmonies, there was always the Bee Gees. Think I'm going back to Massachusetts.
Right.
And I just thought, my God, this is great.
Right.
You know, and that's where I started.
Yeah, and Tom Jones is still going strong. I know he's in his 80s.
So is Engelbert.
Yeah, so you gotta love that. When did you first really start performing, start playing music? When was that? In teens, or was it a little later than that even?
It was later than that. I was one of those guys that, you know, I was never very pushy. But when anybody said, will you get up and sing, I always got up and sang.
Right.
You know, well, will you get up and sing? Aye, okay. Why? What do you know? You know? And so then I was invited to join a band that did their own songs and cover versions. And so I kind of learned to sing Foreigner, Dio, I don't remember what else we did. You know, a whole bunch of Whitesnake, all these things. So what I did then was I kind of learned how to sing them and put it into my own performance rather than be a copy, right? Rather than be a copy.
Yeah.
I thought, well, if I can combine the best things of Lou Gramm, Ronnie Dio, you know, James Taylor, for heaven's sake, you know, and you just bring it all together and then you've got wells to pull from.
Yes.
You can just reach down there and go, well, what would Billy Joel, what would Bowie, what would Mick Jagger, and you just pull it out, you know, and it just works. And it just worked for me.
Yeah, you can tell that, Doogie. No smoke blowing out of here. I don't blow smoke. I say what's real to me. And I've noticed as I've started to get really kind of ingrained in your singing, I felt it was unique. I mean, yeah, there, you know, the music definitely has some sounds that are across the genre, but boy, I love your voice. And I noticed you're about 24 years old. La Paz came into your, is that the pronunciation? And
Yes.
it seems like that was formed in the early 80s, but then
Yes.
reformed, and you're still doing stuff with them to this day, right? Or
Well, yes. Well, La Paz was my first proper band,
right.
and it was the guitar player Checkmate Sherry,
Oh,
and back in those days, you worked with the best guys
yeah.
in your town or in your street. You know, it's not like now where I can call somebody up in LA and go, "Hi, man, hello, Howie, what are you doing? Would you like to?" You know, so with Howie Simon or Rudy Sarzo or anybody.
Right.
It's, you know, it back then it was, how much does the bus cost?
Right.
Right? So it was a bit like that. But Chick was the best guitar player in town. I was the second best singer in town.
Oh.
And we put a band together and we became the best band in town. But you can run it so long and then you know that it's not going anywhere. I mean, we had interest from Atlantic Records and from FM, Revolver, and from 4 or 5 different people, but no one signed us.
Right.
And by that time, everybody was kind of moving on to their late 20s. They had girlfriends, they were having children, they were doing it. And so it just had to go.
Right.
Now, what happened was when we got back together in, oh my God, it must have been 2011 or something?
2009 I have, but you know
2009, it very well could be. Our old friend Tom Russell, and Tom was the guy that I used to sit and listen to on the radio before I even knew him. I mean, I just used to listen there, and I would listen, and he introduced me to Jimmy Barnes, Michael Bolton, you know, all these different guys, and I would just go, man, this is amazing. And that was when rock shows were rock shows.
Right.
It's before I used to do a rock show for a radio station in London, and it was great because I thought I would take the spirit of Tom Russell and Tommy Vance and play the music that I love.
Right.
Right. And then one day I walked in and they said, "We've been bought over. Here's your playlist." And it's all the same stuff. Right.
Wow.
And I said, "Well, I'm not doing that."
Right.
And they said, "Will you stay for the rest of the day?" And I said, "I will. And unless you change it, I won't be coming back." And I never went back.
Oh, that's wild.
I never went. Well, I never went back because I don't. The problem that bands don't get heard anymore. Man, I get picked up if I'm in Bulgaria, Buenos Aires, Sao Paulo, wherever it is, right?
Right.
They always have rock radio on, and I get in the car, and I can guarantee you, doesn't matter what time it is.
Right.
It's Sweet Child of Mine, Stairway to Heaven, Sweet Home Alabama, November Rain, Back in Black, and you know what? If that's all people are getting to hear,
right,
they're missing out on so much more good music that's out there. But that's what the corporations want to pay for. And I don't think that the kind of music that I want to be involved with should be involved with corporations at any point ever.
Wow.
And so I have no time for it.
Yeah, that's a great mindset to have. Not everybody has that kind of stoicism that you should have like that. I love it. The late 80s, it looked like La Paz would stop for a while until the mid 2000 or 2009. You were paying your dues. You know, it seems you were making a couple records that you shined your voice. So you were, you know, at least getting it out there. Midnight Blue came in, you did a record with them, and then you auditioned for Iron Maiden. And that had to be a fun experience, regardless of the outcome, wasn't it?
Well, that was well, that was a bit mental. Midnight Blue were a great band, right?
Really?
We had oh my God, Alex Dixon, who was the guitar player. I met him when he was 15 years old. When I was playing in La Paz in Scotland, and he moved to London, and he phoned me up and said, "Man, I've got a really good band. You should move down to London now." Wow. So that's what I did. And he was just blindingly brilliant. But he went on to play with Bruce Dickinson and Bruce's Skunk Works.
Right.
And his solo band. He went on to play with Robbie Williams, who maybe some of you guys don't know over there, but he was a massive star over here and could sell out Nebworth the same way as Zeppelin could. He played with the Spice Girls. He played, he's just one of these guys, man. Brilliant guitar player.
That's something else. Midnight Blue.
And then I went on to the Maiden thing.
Yeah, how was that?
Well, it was disappointing. But I got 3 days notice to do it, and I was ready. I was going up to Scotland and opened the front door. And I don't know if you know him, Dickie Bell, who was the production manager for Maiden.
Sounds familiar.
I was like, oh. And he said, where do you think you're going? I was going, I'm going to Scotland. No, you're not. You're auditioning for Maiden on Monday. I was like, okay. And he went, here's a cassette. So I had to take it with this hand. And so I had to learn 20 songs or something.
Wow.
Over a weekend. I didn't sleep for a long time. And then he came round and picked me up, and we went up there and we ran through. And at that time, it was mostly a live one and a dead one that they were doing.
Right.
And so it was a lot of that stuff, Be Quicker, Be Dead, and some of the earlier stuff. And so it was great. I really enjoyed myself. I thought it was brilliant. But it wasn't a very big room. And so I had Nico behind me. Mm-hmm. Because that makes sense if you're singing. You got to have the drummer behind you, right?
Oh yeah,
you know that, right?
Completely, yeah.
Right, and then it was Yannick and Davey, then a space, and then Steve.
Oh God!
And I was in the center with two monitors on the floor.
Oh,
they wow! We'd like to do Run to the Hills now, and I was like, okay. I was like, oh my God, here I am, and it's these guys. But it went well enough for them to invite me back again. Yeah. But Blaze got the job, and Blaze was there for 5 or 6 years, and he did a great job.
Right.
But then the universe and all the planets reconnected, and everything was the way it was supposed to be, and that's why they're still the greatest metal band on the planet.
Yeah, they were something else. I saw them about 10 or 12 years ago outside at an amphitheater here near DC, and it poured like a monsoon as we were walking in. So by the time we got in, we were completely drenched, but the sun came out at night, and they put on, a wonderful show, even in the 2010 era. You went early 90s was Praying Mantis, so that was a run with them. You had a demo tape forwarded to Ritchie Blackmore's management. And what I read is that it sat in a box for a while. And then Candace Knight, who I've interviewed, his wife, wonderful lady, discovered it, presented it to Ritchie, and boom, he was like, yes, I love this guy. You auditioned and you joined the band in 94. Is that even close to the reality?
That's exactly how it happened. I'd been over, it was a long time. I had gone to and given the cassette to Colin Hart, who was the tour manager for Purple at the time, and said, if Ritchie ever needs a singer, here I am. I was a wee boy, a young man, and all of a sudden I was over auditioning for a band called Pink Cream 69. Wow. Right. And they just offered me the job in Pink Cream 69.
Right.
And I came home, and there was a sign. I wish I had it. I wish you knew. I knew you were going to mention that. I still have it somewhere.
Right.
And there was a sign on my door saying, Ritchie Blackmore's secretary's called. Can you please call her? So I went to the pub.
Oh God. Perfect.
Got the pub.
Why wouldn't you? Yes.
And then called back. Of course, we didn't reply, blah, blah. Anyway, I ended up speaking with him, and we went, and I flew over it. within a week, 10 days, and just walked in. And, I knew his songs better than he did, and better than anybody else's songs. This was the guitar player that when I was 15 years old, I heard and thought, I want to work with you one day. And there I was, and it just worked, and it worked. The album Stranger Than Us All we did together is not the best album. I mean, it doesn't even figure in my top 5 or top 10 of albums that I've done.
Right.
But it's the most important album I ever did, because it gave me the opportunity to go on tour with him.
Yeah.
And the tour was brilliant. The tours were brilliant. Because he had something to show to the Purple guys. And he was at the top of his last game. He was just blindingly brilliant. He had that brilliant period in the early 70s up till about 78, where he was working through all that. And then he had another brilliant period when he came back.
Right.
And he was working for The Battle Rages On, because he wanted to piss Gillen off. And then I sort of latched onto that. And he was brilliant. And so that, while it's not the best album by a country mile that I've ever done, right? And I mean, it's not, but it's the most important album I've ever done.
Oh, wow. That is something else. And I loved how you commented, Doogie, on how when you played the Apollo and Hammersmith in London in 95, you said, hey, everybody, I was selling hot dogs in the lobby the last time I was here. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
that was true. And I used to do Indian film nights, and all these beautiful Indian people would turn up, all dressed up to the nines. And the Apollo was always full, 3,500 people watching. Or I would do boxing. There was boxing there, and I would always be there and hand out popcorn. And then one night I was called in because they had, and I'm never quite sure which one it was. It was either Mr. Big or Extreme.
Right.
And of course, the Great British Music Press turned up, saw me, came over, bought popcorn, huge big tumblers of cola with ice, and went up onto the balcony and then just started throwing shit at me. And so I quit that night, and honestly, I had never been there again since that night.
Oh, well, that is a fabulous short story of anybody's music career, that it went from one point to the other. We've got 2 little clips that I love to show. There's one where it's just a very unique one of you and Ritchie on a Japanese TV interview called Bang Up Rock.
Yeah.
And there you are, had to be in the early to mid 90s when you were with Ritchie and the band, and you guys do a couple of wonderful versions of some things, including Over the Rainbow. Here's a little Ritchie Blackmore and Doogie White.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, that's the place that I dream of once in a lullaby. Good evening, Japan. Whenever I'm in your fabulous country, I listen to TVK Bang Up Rock. And that's where you should be tonight. After you've been down to your local store and bought the new Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow album, Stranger Than Us All. Have you met Ritchie? See you on tour in November. Be there. Genki desu ka? The northern lights of old Aberdeen mean home, sweet home to me. The northern lights of Aberdeen are where I long to be. I've been a wanderer all of my life, and many a sight I have seen. Godspeed the day till I'm on my way. to my home in Aberdeen. Splendid.
Very good.
We used to just go out to bars and sit in bars, and no one knew him. We were recording the album and things, and we just went out there and we'd take the guitar down and we'd walk in, and he'd plug in a gorilla, and we'd sit and play. And it was great. It was great.
Yeah, he's something. I remember when I was talking to Candace about him, she just said often he would just come and sit in this chair in their living room and just start playing. And it must be an incredible thing. This is from 1995, October, I believe. And it's with Rainbow and in Dusseldorf, Germany at the Rock Palace Festival. And this is a wonderful version. And I just, again, love your voice. This is a great version of the Yardbirds, Still I'm Sad.
Still sad. See the stars falling down from the sky. Gently passing the kiss your teardrops dry.
When we were recording the album, Ritchie was very, it needs to be in time, right? The drummer didn't like the click track, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Wow.
So we put a pulse on, right? And I was doing warm-ups for a vocal I was doing for another song. And I just started singing, see the stars come falling down from the sky. And the next thing I know, it's on the bloody album.
Oh my God.
I had no idea. I have on a one of these high 8 tapes of me doing it. And I don't, it was unbelievable. And they just built the whole thing around it.
Oh my God. Yeah, that is spectacular. Oh my God. Rainbow came to an end. So the late 90s, you did a number of cool things, some tribute records, guesting with people, working with Alec Dixon again, on some work. You contributed to Steve Morganson's solo project. So that had to be, a fun, creative input for you.
That was great.
Early 2000s was another kind of collaboration with another hard rock guitar legend, Yngwie Malmsteen. How was that, and how did that come to be, Doogie?
Well, Yngwie had done an album called The War to End All Wars,
Okay.
right? And Mark Bowles had sung on it. And then I don't know what happened. It ended up with Joran Land doing the American tour.
Right.
And he lasted about 3 weeks. And then he was home, and they got Mark Bowles back in again. And when they arrived in London, Mark phoned me up and said, save me, save me. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I don't want to do this. He's like, save me. I was like, okay. So I came down and he introduced me to Yngwie, and Yngwie went, I think you might be my next singer. And I said, okay, let me know. And so the next thing, and what was good about my time with Yngwie was because I had no preconceptions at all about what was going to happen.
Wow.
He said, I've had problems with singers over the years. Just to let you know, and you can say no if you don't want to do it, but I'm going to write everything, melodies, lyrics, music, the whole lot. If you want to do this, you're welcome to stay. If you don't like, there's your ticket and you can go home. And I stayed with him for 7 years.
Yeah, you did.
Because I was getting my yayas and my writing out with Cornerstone. You mentioned Steen.
Yes.
So I was doing that, and I was touring, because you only have, you write an album, record an album, and tour. That's 6-7 months. That leaves 5.
Right.
So there's 5 when you're doing nothing.
Right.
And I don't like doing nothing.
No. I bet
So I always find something else to do, man.
Yeah, that's certainly is obvious, and I love that. I noticed that as I was going through your story, is that when you're doing something over here, and you just defined it. It's like, I got 7 months to record and tour. I got a bunch of months where you're working you're working on the Cornerstone record, and that's how the 2000s began. In the same year, you were on you replaced you joined the German band Empire. Is that?
Yes. Yeah. That was great.
Look at this.
Great.
I mean, come on, people had to, not only did they had to love your voice and your performance, but also you had to be a pretty good guy to get into all these bands. And I've noticed that I've had 75 guests on Living on Music since it started last year. And a lot of the people who are, longtime musicians who are continued to be active as you are to this day, were because you had some demeanor that people can stomach, right? Is that true?
Yeah, well, I think so. Well, I don't know. I mean, I can only talk about myself, really. And I'm not a rock star, right? I'm just a singer, and I've got to work with these guys because I'm actually quite good at what I do, and I'm a good writer as well. When I get good music to work with, and it's great that you mentioned Empire, because Monkus, Rolf, that's another one of my favorite records.
Oh, cool.
I love it. Chasing Shadows.
Yeah.
I just thought, this is great. But no one knew it. Record company, promotion, nothing. And so, and it really is not about how good your work is. It's really about how good the promotion is for your work. And there's plenty of stuff out there. Excuse me, Bird Song, right? But it still goes to #1 in the charts. But the question is, and it's a big question, if you were going to go out in a boat, would you take that music with you?
Right.
And the answer is probably not. And everybody's going, and they're doing it now. I'm watching them doing it now, and they're going, oh, the Bird Song, that's a brilliant album. That sounds so great. Bird Song. And it really is. And it really is about the product.
Right. Well, you continued to be, courted and hired as a singer as you went along. So it seemed like the flow just kept rolling. You joined Tank. in 2008, which seemed like a great move because you continued to perform with La Paz also around 2008, 2009, right? So it was La Paz and Tank and then some other project. It seems like the Doogie White kind of ongoing multiple project world. And then John Lord jumped in, another Deep Purpler. And you stepped in for his regular singer for a while. How was that? How was that for Steve Balsamo? Yeah, how was that experience?
Well, Steve was a neighbor of mine.
Oh, funny.
He lived 2 streets over from me, and I don't like him very much because he's incredibly handsome.
Oh.
And he's incredibly good at what he does. And I saw him in Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh.
The 1996 revival, and I went and I thought I got to go and see this because it hadn't been done for 15 years.
Right.
And I went and saw it. And I bawled my eyes out when he did Gethsemane. And you can play that if you want from the Ahoy. You should play that. Stevie Balsamo doing from the Ahoy is outrageously brilliant.
Wow.
Right? And he was a neighbor of mine, and he'd been asked to go on the road and do Jesus Christ Superstar for a touring thing, and he went, I'm done with this shit. I'm done with this bird.
Shit's okay.
But okay. Do you fancy doing it, man? And I went, okay. So I went along to a wee church in London and auditioned for it. And I was as a 35 or 38-year-old guy with all these guys that had just come out of college.
Oh.
You know, music college, all this kind of stuff. And I was called back to do that, a bit like the Maiden thing. I was called back to do it again. But of course, there's always something that just trips you up. And it was because I didn't have an agent. It was because of this, because of that.
Right.
And eventually they went back and they got somebody else to do it. But Steve ended up being John's singer. And he had to go. Now, I'm not dropping names here, but he had to go on tour with Elton John on a stadium tour. He had to go on tour with his own band to open up for Elton John. And he said, I can't do these shows with John. And so he put me forward, and John's response was, if Ritchie Blackmore can put up with him, I'm sure I can.
Wow, there you go.
And we had such a blast. I did 3 orchestral concerts with him, and it was great because it's a different vibe for me, you know, because it's, you know, working with Ritchie and Yngwie in a rock band. You know, it doesn't matter. 1, 2, 3, 4, you're in. You miss it, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, you're in again. You can't do that with a 75-piece orchestra.
Right.
So it was hysterical, but we had a great time.
Oh, it sounds like it. And another wonderful advancement in Doogie White's world. The 2010 came along, 11, you did Demon's Eye, which I guess was another run, another German band, The Stranger Within. We'll talk a little bit about, as we come to the end in a few minutes, about your solo record, which you had in 2011, and now you have new songs, correct, from that record, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But in 2011, you joined up with Michael Schenker, another player, another guy who could eat it up on guitar. How did that relationship come to be? And it's been one that continues to the present, it seems, with the various machinations of Michael Schenker's.
Well, let's go back 2 weeks. Let's go back 2 weeks to Demon's Eye.
Right.
Demon's Eye, if you get a phone call on a Sunday morning at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, it's never going to be good news, right? And I got a similar phone call, and it was one of the guy, Andre from Demon's Eye, and he said, do you know Deep Purple Mark III and Mark IV songs? I said, I do. He said, can you get yourself out here to Germany? I said, I can.
Wow.
Because it was Glenn Hughes, they were doing a gig with Glenn, and Glenn had got sick.
Oh.
So he'd pulled out. And so when I pulled up in the limousine and I stepped out the car, they went, you're not Glenn Hughes.
Oh my God.
And out of 1,500 people, only 4 people asked for their tickets back. You know, so that was that. And then I've ended up working with them over the years, and we did 2 great albums together. And then it sort of moved on to Michael, and an old friend of mine was playing bass with Michael, Chris Glenn. He was from the sensational Alex Harvey band. He'd played with Rory Gallagher. He'd played with Ian Gillan. You know, and he was a great bass player. And next to Bowie and Mark Bolan, he was one of the most beautiful men of that time period, of that glam rock period back in the early 70s.
Right.
And he was playing there, and he said, "Hey man, why don't you come along and have a sing song with Michael?" I was like, "Really?" So I went along, and I didn't meet Michael, you know, and I just got up and sang. And then the next thing I know, it was like, "Hi, would you like to come down and audition for the Michael Schenker group?" And I was like, "Okay." And I went down there, and Michael said, "I want you to, I think you and I should write an album together and put a band together. We'll call it Temple of Rock."
Right.
We'll get Herman Rarebell and Francis Buchholz from the Scorpions in there.
Wow.
And we've got Wayne there. You and I will write all the songs. Let's go. And I went, "All right, man."
Wow.
And so 9 years later, we were still doing all this stuff.
Yeah, it seemed like the Temple of Rock went about 5 years, I guess. And then
5 or 6 years.
He reinvented things to make the Michael Schenker Fest.
That's right.
And the album, how did that go?
I remember we were in Norway playing, and he said, "Oh, I think Temple of Rock's run its course, but I'd still like to work with you. But I'm thinking of bringing in all the old singers, you know, get Gary and Robin and Graham in." And I said, "Michael," he said, "do you want to be involved?" And I said, "I really don't mind, so long as I'm the highest paid." And so 18 months later, I still hadn't heard back from him, because he'd gone off and he went and did, you know, some festivals and some Japanese stuff with those guys. And then when it came to the album, he said to me, "Hey man, I really need you to write some songs with me for the album." And I was happy to do it. And we had another 4 or 5 years doing that. And then, you know, we were getting ready to go on tour in Japan in 2020. We'd rehearsed the whole thing up in 2020, and then the virus hit, and it just was done. You know, the tour dates were going from Japan in the beginning of March through to South America in October, and like that, it was gone.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, so he just went off and did an album. He did an album with Jolyn Turner and a couple of other guys, some German guys, and that was kind of that. And now he's looking at doing another one. So he said, "Well, will you sing on my album?" And I thought, "Well, let's see how it goes."
Oh, so that's in the possible works.
Well, I think that he wants to, you know, whether it's an MSG album like he did the last time with Joe, and I'm trying to remember their names, but with Jolyn, but he had 4 singers in there, right. And he's doing the similar thing again, you know. But I really only like singing the songs I write. I'm not interested in singing somebody else's stuff,
right?
To be honest.
Yeah, that's not
it's unrewarding for me.
Right. That's not an uncommon feeling, I don't think, for people who write like you. Sometimes they just want to be able to present. Yeah. Talked a little bit. Here's a clip, guys, of I love this, and this again shows Doogie's power. It's from Resurrection, which was the album with Michael Schenker Fest.
Okay.
And it's from around, I guess, 2018. Take Me to the Church.
Okay.
Yeah. Where did that come? Briefly did that come to be?
Well, that came to be because I did the chorus for a while, and it, you know, and not to blow my own trumpet, right? Because there are a few trumpets to blow here, but that's one of the best Schenker songs for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And it was really, really, really good. And we went off to Russia, and the video was shot in a reconsecrated church in St. Petersburg. And we got there and we did a show. And of course, Michael hates me speaking because I can, as you know, as you found out, right? I can do this, right. And he was there and he was ready to go. And I said, and good friends from St. Petersburg were shooting a video for this new song, Take Me to the Church. And he went, now I know what you're doing. And we shot it. So it's a bit live, it's a bit shot in that church. And it's got Robin and Graham and Gary doing the backing vocals. And it's brilliant.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
You know, if over the last 15 years, you can find a better, more appreciated Schenker song than this one, you can call in and let me know.
Yeah, really. I'll buzz you if I find something. I don't think I will. I love this. I also love the dramatic nature of the video and Schenker looking at, like, you know, just this guitar guy, and you're just belting it out. This is a great piece, you guys. This is, again, Michael Schenker Fest Band from Resurrection, Take Me to the Church. It's a great video, and more importantly, an awesome song. You do a beautiful job. I love that. Over the last 10 years, you know, there's been some more La Paz stuff. There's been, some wonderful things you've done. I noticed, I found one clip that, I don't know, just shows your theatrical nature to me. It shows the heavy progressive kind of side of you. It was done at the Proxima Temple of the King. And it's called Temple of the King, actually, but it was done. Can you talk a little bit about this song?
Well, Temple of the King was from the first Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow album called Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow.
Right.
And I went over to Ritchie's house Christmas 1994, 93, 94. And we sat down in his bar. He's got a bar down in his basement. And we sat and he said, do you know this? And he would play something and I would sing it. And he'd go, do you know this? And I would sing it. He'd go, oh. do you know this? And he played Temple of the King, and we sang it. And he said, I think that might be something we can do live. And so what we did was we took it and we made it very different from the album version, which was dee, diddly, diddly, dee. We drew it back and it just gave it emotion. And what I've been doing and all my solo shows that I do with my band White Noise, whether it's Argentina or Brazil or Norway or Scandinavia, whatever, I always finish with Temple of the King. And I always, and what I do is, at that time, there was only a few of those people had died. You know, Cozy was dead, John was dead, Ronnie was dead. And it just kind of built up. And it was a very emotional thing for the audience to be part of, because it fed into their psyche as well. Yeah. You know, and you know, and then over the years, and you know, Bernie Tormey died and Jimmy Bain died, you know, and it just became this celebration of people who we'd loved and lost. Yeah. And I think a wee bit, and I don't want to be pretentious or arsey here, so
you're good.
But I think that what I did with Temple of the King, Joe Cocker did with a little help from my friends.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's what I did with it. I think I took it to something that people actually could go, actually, now we get it. Now we can hold on to it. I didn't write it. I never claimed to have written it, but the emotion and the fellowship that we share, for whether it's 1,000 people in the room or 25 people in the room, that fellowship, when I say Temple of the King, that the whole place is just, I could probably sell in the merch desk some handkerchiefs.
Right. That's unbelievable.
But it's true. It's true.
Yeah, I felt it when I watched it, Doogie. I did. If there was an emotion to it, I could tell that it was special. You did this version of it in October, late October 2017. So was that one with one of the other bands?
It would depend. What kind of jacket am I wearing?
Oh, yeah, I have to look at it again. It's kind of like I thought it was like a kind of checkered.
Yeah, it was probably a John Lord Memorial concert.
Yes, it was. It says
right,
Memorial
in Poland, right?
Wow.
And we never got a chance to rehearse it, but I just had to say to them, we're going to do this. And they went, okay, and just follow me. Yeah. And we just followed it, and it was great. It was great.
I think it brings a lot of your character and your talents to a real wonderful place with this version. Everybody, this is Doogie White doing this beautiful version of Temple of the King.
One day in the year of the fox came a time remembered well, when the strong young man of the rising sun heard the tolling of the great black bell. One day in the year of the fox, when the bell began to ring, it meant the time had come for one to go to the temple of the king. There in the middle of the circle he stands, searching, seeking. With just one wave of his strong right hand, the answer will be found. Daylight waits while the old man sings, heaven, help me. Then like the rush of 1,000 wings, he's gone. And the day has just begun. The day has just begun. time had come for one to go to the temple of the king. Far from the circle at the edge of the world, he's hoping, he's wandering, he's thinking back to the stories he's heard and what he's gonna see. Daylight awaits while the old man sings, heaven, help me. Then like the rush of 1,000 wings, he climbs upon the wall to the temple of the
The bottom line is that unless we all adhere to what we need to be doing, I mean, Bill Gates is not fucking trying to control your life. Bird song. I mean, he's not.
No.
He's really not.
No.
But so many people are down these rabbit holes now. You know, they're so far down these that they just don't. They can't find their way out. And I've got a couple of mates, and they're old friends from 20, 25, 30 years, and they're down that rabbit hole, and there's no conversation with them at all. And you know, I'm just sitting going, well, the next thing's going to happen is you're going to catch this, and then you're not going to be. I just hope that people try to stay safe. Yeah. That's the most important thing. Be safe. If you don't want to take the vaccine, don't take it. Right. Don't come running to me when you get the disease.
I agree.
And your lungs pack in, and your heart packs up, and your mum dies, and your granny dies.
Yeah.
You know, look to yourself here.
I agree 100%. And in America, I just went to see the Grateful Dead and Company band last week. And, you know, you had to have a vaccination card to get into the show. And that's the way it is with a lot of venues in the United States right now, and Live Nation shows everywhere. Going to see Steve Earle and Los Lobos on Thursday night. And we have to be in a pod. You know, there's 4 of us in a pod, you know, on a grassy knoll.
Yeah.
And that's the only way you can do it. And I'm like, all right, I'm game. You know, I want to be smart and safe, and I want to see live music and play live music. And so anyway, I am wishing you nothing but the best. Let's keep in touch so I can kind of let people know what Doogie's doing and Alcatraz and everything else that you're doing. And thanks for taking the wonderful time.
Great, man. Thank you so much.
Fellow 60-year-old, I will be in touch with you as we go ahead and keep kicking ass with your wonderful voice. All right. Take care.
Love and peace. Thank you very much.
All right, man.
My name is Billy Austin. I'm 29 years old. I'm born in Oklahoma. Quarter Cherokee. I'm told. See, I love Steve Earle.
Oh, that's fantastic that you just did that. I've interviewed him a couple of times, and what a sweet guy he is. But we'll be in touch. Thanks, Doogie.
Take care. Thanks a lot. Ciao.
Right. Now there is another guy. I just feel so blessed to be able to talk to some of these, well, to everybody who's been on Living on Music, every single guest, but guys like this who have been going strong for 40 years and are keeping going. And also a guy who wasn't really, you know, in a home full of music like a lot of my guests, and didn't have a lot of brothers and sisters maybe that influenced him. He began it as he evolved into his teen years, and then really hit it in his early 20s, as you heard. And what a great guy. What a sweet guy. Doogie White, thanks so much for going on Living on Music. Best of luck with Alcatraz. And again, I'll do this, not this. I guess there's some Scottish thing where I guess if you do this, it's almost like you can go down to those fingers too easily. But Doogie, I love you, man. Thanks so much for being on Living on Music, and best of luck to you. Real quick, my next couple of weeks on Living on Music. Next week, very excited to have the founder of We Rock Cancer, Tim Reed. Tim is going to be on to talk about the organization that's been going for a few years and how they use their musical events and their musical collaborations to facilitate the detection of skin cancer. In fact, they're doing a October 2nd gig in Loudoun County, and we're going to be we talked about it with Laura Segaris. We'll be talking about it with Tim on the next show, with Pat McGee and Brian Dunn and Laura Segaris performing, and they're going to be doing free skin cancer screening at the gigs. You pay for dinner, drinks, and you also get a free screening. I had skin cancer during the pandemic, basal cell sarcoma. Luckily it was minor, no follow-up issues. They cut it out and I was done. So, there you go. But it can get really, really bad. And that's why you got to, get out and detect it and get the dermatologist. But Tim Reed's going to be here to talk about what We Rock Cancer has been doing since they've gotten going, and also what they want to look forward to do in the future. And the next week after that, very excited to have one of the local, one of this area's real stellar singer-songwriter, performer, collaborators, and also is known all over the place. Justin Trawick will be joining me. Justin is just a wonderful guy, has had a solo career that really turned out some fabulous music. Has his band Justin Trawick and the Common Good, which was going strong when the pandemic hit. And we're going to talk to Justin also. Again, it's an interesting ride to talk to musicians about how they've gotten through this. And 98% of them have been able to, surge forward and keep doing things to keep themselves sane. And that's what we're going to be talking to Justin Trawick about what's he done over the last year to keep things going. And also, what is he going to be doing over the next few months and year to continue his ride. So can't wait to have Tim Reed and then Justin Trawick on over the next couple of weeks. Real quick, go to the Zebra page on Facebook and find out all about the Zebra Press and about all the things that the Zebra Press does in Alexandria and Northern Virginia and the region. And that's why we're part of ZTV, and you can go and check them out. Also, you go to the ZTV page, and that's where Living on Music originated, and also a number of wonderful hosts and television shows on Living on Music on ZTV, and you can find out more about that. The Zebra newspaper is out, the September edition. You want to be sure you go down and find it in town in some of the paper boxes that are all over Alexandria, or you just go right here to thezebra.org on the internet, and you go down to the bottom there and you see subscribe. You click there and you can get a subscription with a paper sent to you. And you can actually read a paper in person, one of my favorite things, for a nominal fee by subscribing. Living on Music continues to be a production of Zebra Press. It is edited by my longtime best buddy and also a fabulous musician himself and a wonderful editor, Todd Jones. Thanks, Todd, for everything. And the Zebra publisher is Mary Wadland. Well, next week again from We Rock Cancer, Tim Reed joins me to talk about that amazing organization. Until then, remember, everybody, stay safe. Do what you got to do to be diligent. Nobody wants to wear masks. Nobody wants to stay inside. But the only way this is going to stop is if we're vaxxed, masked, and smart. And that's true. And science says it. So, if you have any issues, message me and let me know. But that's what you got to do. And then also, while you're doing all that, remember, be the good news in someone's life. Peace.